Welcome back to the Golden State with Mates post-game live after the Warriors get a much-needed 114-106 victory over the Minnesota Timberwolves at Chase Center on Sunday. Welcome to the chat for those of you that are here. Please let me know what your thoughts on the game were. Huge win, much-needed win, and a really impressive one because I thought that was a really good game of basketball. I thought it was really high level, high quality from both teams. I thought Minnesota actually played really well, and the Warriors had to play incredibly well to win that game on both ends of the floor, and they did. And so, as good a win as this is, I think that makes it even more so in the fact there's multiple elements, I think, from this that we can take forward here as the Warriors now move to 14-9 on the season. A few comments from you guys to start off with. Gamer F2P, clearly very happy about the win. Says JK and Draymond defensive fourth. OMG, got to give GP2 his flowers. Great win, Dubs fans. I'll be back later for the stream. Anima King, JK is totally coming around on both ends of the floor. Trade says GP2 had Edwards on straight clamps that whole fourth. FTW clan, if only Buddy, Kuminga, and GP2 could play like this consistently, Looney was huge too. All right, let's get on to so many different things to talk about here. We've got to start with Buddy Hield. This guy is he's so funny to watch. It's so frustrating because when he plays like that, he's like a legit offensive star. When he's hitting shots, he's a legit offensive star. And then when he's not hitting shots, as he hasn't been for like the last 9 or 10 games now, then he's a complete liability. And you just can't have him on the floor. Like it's from rags to riches, back to rags. Like he's been excellent in about half the games, and he's been downright terrible in about half the games. This is just who he is. And we're going to have to live with some of this every now and again. And some of the stuff I saw, like the first half wasn't great from the Warriors whatsoever. The same offensive struggles from Friday continuing on. I think they scored 21 points in the first quarter. You have that Mike Conley corner three that really felt like a gut punch at the end of the first half. Edwards comes out, drills a three at the start of the third. All of a sudden, you're down 61-49, and you think, oh, geez, this is looking like the 7th loss in the last 8 games, and the Warriors falling into an even bigger hole. And the Buddy stuff in the first half wasn't great. He got the start. Another, not a weird lineup from Steve, but I suppose Wiggins' absence making Steve go to a completely different combination with Draymond starting at center for the first time this season, JK at the 4, which we know is going to happen moving forward. GP2 out there, which obviously you have to give him the responsibility on Edwards with Wiggins not there with that ankle issue, and then Buddy and Steph in the backcourt. So funny kind of funky Warriors starting lineup, and it wasn't great early, and the Buddy Hield stuff wasn't great. But even like there was a possession in the second quarter where he got the ball in the corner. Gobert closed out hard to him. He kind of dribbled past Gobert, drew the defense, kicked it out for Pods, top of the arc 3, makes it. And Fitz and Klenner on the broadcast were very happy with that play from Buddy and passing up on that 3 to attack the closeout and then find Pods. And it did make me wonder. I was like, okay, you've still, like the Warriors just can't hit water if they fell out of a boat from basically all of last game to the first half of this game. You need to have shooting on the floor. And Buddy Hield, he might not be making shots, but it was almost like Clay last season and even Clay now, where even when Clay's not hitting shots, the defense is still going to respect. And there's just so many players the Warriors have that defenses don't respect from beyond the arc, that you've still kind of got to play Buddy Hield for lengthy minutes, because at least, you know, defenses will close out to that guy because he is one of the best shooters in the league. And so there's that aspect to it, which means he's probably always going to play some. But when he's making shots like he did in the second half, has 19 of his 27 points in the second half, that huge dagger 3 with about 57 seconds to go, where it was a really, for me, and I tweeted out, it was a really no, yes shot, because Steph's running down the floor and you can see the play unfold from a mile away. You can see Buddy spotting up in the corner and you know what's going to happen. But I am looking at it thinking the Warriors are up 3. There's now under a minute remaining. You've just got possession of the ball. Just burn some clocky. You can take it down to, 35, 40 seconds left and try and get a shot. But instead, Steph finds Buddy spotting up in the corner and Buddy rips it. And this would have been, like 4, 5, 6 seconds into the shot clock. And as that ball's in the air, I'm like, oh, this better go in, please. And it did. And of course, that's an ideal scenario because now the lead 6. You get to stop the next possession, and then Draymond with the kind of fake dribble handoff to Steph goes right by for an exclamation dunk to win the game there. But the Buddy Hield stuff, he was excellent in this game, and that's what you're going to get some excellent games, you're going to get some really bad games, and it's about trying to balance those minutes and when he's got it going and when he doesn't. But at the very least, like, he's always going to be a threat out there, and I think the Warriors have too many non-threats where defenses just won't guard them, that he just has to play some. Like, I actually thought, we saw him on Friday play a season low 13 minutes, 22 seconds. I thought, is this guy really like about to be out of the rotation completely? I don't think that can possibly happen, because I just like the Warriors don't have enough shooting threats for him to be out of the rotation completely. A few other comments. GSW, at least he doesn't shoot us out of games like Clay last year. Yeah, that's a good point. I think Buddy Hield doesn't have necessarily like 0 of 10 games, 0 of 11 games. Like, he does have periods where I think we've seen over the last couple of weeks where if he's not feeling it, and even we saw in that first half, like that play that I was speaking about in the first half, if he's feeling it in that scenario, he's feeling good. He's putting that 3 up before Gobert can even close out. But because he's like lacking confidence a bit, he decided to attack the closeout, made the right play. But maybe Clay in that scenario, I don't want to compare him too much to Clay. It's kind of been a thing for the entire season. I don't know. They're two different players, but the same shooting threat they bring is obviously very similar. I get it. But anyway, GSW, did Moody get injured? Could only watch the fourth. Just confused why Lindy got 20 minutes when he wasn't scoring to Moody's 4. Yeah, so Moody didn't play at all in the second half, and that's because of the knee injury. Steve confirmed that after the game. Just got the tweet from Slater before Moody left the game or wasn't available in the second half because of that same knee issue that he wasn't available in the second half for on Friday. So no need to be really too concerned about Lindy playing so much over Moody because Moody was just unavailable. FTW claim, hopefully this game gets Buddy out of his slump. Yes, fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. It's not necessarily going to be as good as that. What he had, he had 27 points on 10 of 18, 7 of 13. Like, he's not going to shoot 56 and 54 from 3 every game. But I don't know. You just like him to be more consistent. Like, because if you look at his season numbers are still actually pretty good. But it's just felt so bad the last couple of weeks because it has been. Like, it was unbelievably hot to start the season and unbelievably cold. And like, if you just look at his averages are still okay. So I suppose sometimes you just got to take the good with the bad with him. FTW Clan says, ultimately, I believe turnovers is the number one factor for this team. We have the defense to win games as long as the other team isn't getting so many more shot attempts and points off turnovers. You can really see the difference between the first and second half tonight, and even going back to how many turnovers we had last game. Yeah, there was 22 turnovers on Friday against the Timberwolves. Shot less than 40% from the field. You're not going to win games when that happens. So the Warriors in this one, turnovers, again, a little bit of a factor in the first half, but end up with just 11, which is a fantastic result, particularly given a lot of those came in the first half. They ended up shooting 46.7% from the floor, 39% from 3. So, like, decent numbers, like percentage-wise, but not out of this world. And the Timberwolves defense, I think, has been very good. And the Warriors, their shot making just came along. Buddy Hield obviously finally found his rhythm in the second half. Kuminga had a really rough first half. I think he's a big talking point out of this one, as he kind of always is. He's always going to be a big talking point, given now that he's taken this role off Draymond. Now, whether Draymond continues to start at center moving forward, again, I'm not sure that's sustainable. But on a one-off game like this one, then, yeah, it obviously works effectively. Kuminga plays 36 minutes and 10 seconds, easily the highest on the team. That's a big talking point. Has 20 points, 7 rebounds, 2 assists. Got going in the second half. The first half, if you ever saw a point that screamed the Warriors need to get more help for Steph, it was the first half. Like, Steph was a one-man show offensively. Buddy didn't have it going. Kuminga didn't have it going. The Warriors scored 49 points as a team, really struggling. And finally, Buddy and Kuminga came along for the ride in the second half. Looked at Steph and said, "Yep, you know what? You probably need some help here. We'll help you out." And Steph ends up going for 30, 8 of 18, 5 of 11. He was huge, but no doubt the bigger factors to me, I think, because Steph is Steph, right? Steph is Steph. The bigger factors for me, Hield, getting back into some form. That's something to take forward with you. And Kuminga, not the offense as such. Like, he goes 7 of 16, 1 of 4. has 3 turnovers. The offense wasn't great. I found it really, just a side note, I found it really interesting. Minute and a half to go, was it? Warriors up 3. Steph's on the floor, and they just gave the ball to Kuminga in an ISO against Gobert. Now, that's something. That's something to take note of. Steph Curry's on the floor, and Kuminga's on Gobert, who is a, 4-time defensive player of the year. And they're like, okay, JK, like, this is you. With less than 2 minutes to go in a one-possession ball game. That's notable. Now, what happened? Not great. He kind of drove in, slipped, which you probably couldn't really blame him for if the court was a little bit wet. He tried to claim that Gobert pushed him a little bit. Now, I was watching the game thinking, well, Steve Kerr can challenge that. If Kuminga's adamant that he's been pushed by Gobert there, then we know the rules now that if you challenge that, Steve's not necessarily challenging the turnover or the travel, but referees can go back and look at the play in its entirety and see, was the turnover, was the travel forced by a foul? And so I was surprised they didn't challenge that, because I'm pretty sure they still had it in their keeping. They still had a timeout and a challenge to use. Just a couple of comments from you here before I get back onto Kuminga. FTW Clan, I almost said, here we go again after Pods missed that huge momentum 3 while we're up 11, and the next thing I knew we were down 1. FTW Clan says, although Kuminga wasn't amazing offensively, I think his decision-making was solid, and he played pretty good D, especially in the fourth, and rebounded well. Yeah, so that Pajemski, the Warriors were up 11. They found it was a really seesaw battle. Like, Timberwolves up 12 early in the third. Warriors come back. Steph hits that insane buzzer-beating 3 at the end of the third, gives the Warriors a 3-point lead. Warriors start on a 9-1 run at the start of the fourth, go up 11, 102-91. Pods has that 3, which would have put them up 14, misses it. And then the Timberwolves come storming back on a 15-3 run, take the 106-105 lead with about 4:47 to go, I think it was. So under 5 minutes left, Timberwolves lead. And then the Warrior defense over that final. The Timberwolves didn't score again for the rest of the game in the final 5 minutes there. Some huge plays. And that's what I wanted to get into on Kuminga. It's not about the offense in this game for Kuminga. You look at the offense, 20 points. That's fine. Okay? It wasn't overly efficient, but it was fine. That's kind of what you expect from him. Okay? You're going to play 36 minutes in a starting role. That's almost the baseline. Like, you should be averaging 20 points a night. I said that on the podcast episode yesterday. 20 points is like what he should be averaging. So that's kind of fine. Not here nor there for me. That's what I expect. The defense, though, FTW Clan said there, he pretty good D, especially in the fourth, and rebounded well. I wouldn't say pretty good D. I would say excellent defense in the last 5 minutes. You look at Julius Randle's numbers. Kuminga, he's so raw. He's such a raw player in general. Like, he just does some dumb stuff. How about the play in the first quarter where he gets the inbounds pass from GP2. Steph's kind of being harassed by McDaniels. And Kuminga tries to pass the ball back to GP2, who's just not looking, and just turns the ball over in the backcourt. And that's like a real head scratcher. Like, oh, what are we doing? Like, this is a disaster. And then, like, he has some plays where it's just, like, even that turnover on Gobert, it's like, oh. But then he has some stuff. And he's, like, really raw defensively, but he has some plays on defense where you're like, he's got the tools. A couple of his timings on the blocks on Randle, where Randle's got these series of moves, and then Kuminga stays with him. And then times, like, he had 2 steals, 3 blocks in this game. A couple of those blocks, at least 2 of them were on Randle. And he had the matchup on Randle. He also had the matchup on Edwards at times. And when you look at that, you think this guy, he has the tools, he has the physicality to be a really good defender because he's really switchable. Like, he can go guard Edwards, who's 6'5", who plays out on the perimeter, and then he can go guard Randle in the post, who's, 6'8", and a huge body. And so Randle was 4 of 15 from the floor in this game, 14 points. And so 4 of 14 from the floor he was, 14 points. And that inefficiency was largely down to Kuminga. And that's the thing. So this is the thing for me when I spoke about yesterday, about Kuminga now in a starting role, is that if you're playing him 30-plus minutes, and again, he plays a game, was it game high or just, probably wasn't game high. No, Gobert, Randle, both played 37. Gobert played nearly 38 minutes. That's insane. Edwards played 36 and a half, Randall 37, 16, McDaniels played 36. So it wasn't a game high, but a team high 36. No one else Steph was second with 34 minutes and 36 seconds. So he played like 90 seconds more than any other player for the Warriors. This is the thing. You give him these minutes, this role, it actually allows you to say, okay, here's the matchup you've got defensively. You go out and you guard Julius Randle for 35 minutes. And then if he's off the floor, you might get some minutes on Anthony Edwards. And it allows him to lock into someone defensively rather than, well, you're coming off the bench. Who knows what the sub patterns of the other team are? So we're actually not really sure who you're going to guard necessarily. And then your minutes are going to be sporadic. You might play 15 minutes. You might play 25. You don't really know what you're doing. And therefore, we can't really give you an assignment defensively. And this is why, hopefully, fingers crossed, like we don't just see offensive production from JK in this increased role, but his defense might be actually the element that takes a bigger leap here than the offense. Because defensively, as I said, you can actually tell him, all right, you go guard Julius Randle for 35 minutes. That's huge. You give him that responsibility. And that's the thing. This is about giving your most talented young player increased responsibility and see if he can take that. And if he can't, as I said on the podcast yesterday, he's probably going to find himself off the team. But if he can, then all of a sudden you've unlocked something completely new and something that could be absolutely huge for your team, not just in the next 6 to 12 months, but the next 5 to 10 years. So this is what it's about. And again, it's not just about the offensive end where you're giving him responsibility to go one-on-one against Rudy Gobert in the final 90 seconds. Look, was it a great possession? No, because he turned the ball over. But is it very notable that he even got the opportunity to do that? Absolutely. And his defense late in the game, he had that huge monster rebound in the final couple of minutes. I think this is the time. This is the time now for the first time in his career. I mean, we saw it for a stretch last season. But this is like a really true stretch now where you've also got Steph and Draymond out there. Like we've got to remember much of the stretch last season came when Draymond was suspended. This is now a period where Steve looks like he's just saying to JK, you are a guaranteed starter. You are playing not just 30 minutes, but often 35 plus minutes. And we're just going to let you loose and we're going to live through the mistakes that you make. Because we think ultimately that it will pay off for us. You will deliver more good than bad, and that those mistakes you make will iron themselves out over time, and that we will ultimately be rewarded for the investment we're giving to you right now. We're putting in you. So huge. GSW, I love GP2 in the closing lineup. Some of his defensive possessions completely changed the momentum. Okay, GP2 deserves a shout out. Yeah, I thought Edwards was on fire in the first 3 quarters. Absolutely. I'm not sure GP2 did much in the first 3 quarters, but my goodness, that's probably like the close of that game. That fourth quarter is probably the first time all season that I would say GP2 made a significant difference in the result of the game. I don't think I've seen that defensive, not defensive effort, but just defensive impact. Like he had a couple of steals there, huge one, I think it was early in the fourth where there's a kind of a double team on Edwards. He tries to fling over a pass. GP2 just gets his arm up at the right time, makes the steal, gets out in transition. Edwards with a stupid foul that gives GP2 a 3-point play. He missed the 3-point play, but regardless, like probably the first time I think all season where I thought, yeah, that guy's defensive impact, that's what he's known for. That's what he's out there for. That's him being one of the best perimeter defenders in the league. And in fairness, it's absolutely unbelievably good for the Warriors. And this is why, do you want to trade Gary Payton II? Because he's on a $9.1 million expiring contract. Like, that's useful to you in a trade. But if Wiggins is out, like he was in this one, that's a huge, huge luxury to have to say, you know what, we're missing our best perimeter defender, but we've got another elite perimeter defender that we can now throw out there. And this was always going to be the case. If Wiggins is out, GP2 is just going to play a lot because they need his defense. And so he plays 27 minutes. Without looking it up, I'm going to assume that's a season high. 4 of 8, misses 2 of his threes, 8 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals, 2 blocks. Again, the luxury to have that in your arsenal when Wiggins is out, not many teams have that, where they can say, oh, we're missing our best perimeter defender, but oh, hey, we've got another one right here that we can utilize. Thandeka, Buddy finally woke up. GP2 locked up Ant in the fourth. I think I think Ant was like 5. I think Ant was, he was 5 of 6 from 3, I think, and then he was like 9 of 12 from the floor. So he went from 9 of 12 from the floor to finishing with 10 of 19. So if you look at Ant's game, you see 27 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists, 10 of 19, 5 of 9 from 3. You think that's a good game. But the fact he was 9 of 12 and 5 of 6, so I'm pretty sure he finished the game 1 of his last 7 and 0 of his last 3 on threes. He also had 6 turnovers. 6 turnovers, a number of those forced by GP2. Timberwolves had 14 turnovers as a team. Randall had a couple of turnovers as well, which again goes down to Kuminga in large part. So really, really interesting game because you win the game, but then you've got the Kuminga piece, you got the Buddy Hield piece, you got the Draymond at center minutes, you've got Trace, DNP. And you know what? Probably the right decision. Probably what we're going to see again against the Rockets on Wednesday night in the NBA Cup quarterfinal. A few more comments here. Shane Thomas, Buddy looks better when he plays with Curry. He gets better shots, less pods is good for the team. So, I don't know. I'm still worried about that backcourt of Steph and Buddy defensively. Like, they've got to be hitting shots, obviously, for that to work. And if you're going to start Kuminga, and he's kind of your go-to option, and you've also got Wiggins out there, then if you've got Steph, Wiggins, Kuminga all starting, do you need Buddy's offense is my question. So if Wiggins comes back, and assuming he takes GP2's spot in the starting lineup, that like when Wiggins comes back, that's going to happen. But do you need Buddy in there also? Or do you go back to pods? This is where I just think they could do with an upgrade at that 2 spot. Like they still haven't worked it out. They've gone through Waters, pods, Buddy. Like Moody is an option still. GP2 starts this game, but that's more so in regard to Wiggins, but he plays well. They've got options, but they're not really settled on anyone. And so super fascinated to see what happens when Wiggins comes back. Is Buddy there? Does Draymond start at center? Does Looney come back? Does TJD come back in the mix at least for some bench minutes? Who knows? Thandex says, I think Pod should go to the G League. When Kuminga and Poole were crap, they went to the G League and came back better. Was Pod's really that bad in this one? I wouldn't say he was overly impactful. 6 points, 2 of 5, made 2 of his 4 threes. 3 rebounds, 3 assists. He was a -2, so it wasn't great, but it wasn't disastrous. I don't know. I thought he was okay. Like he played 20 minutes. It wasn't great, but I don't think it was like whenever someone brings up this G League stuff, I just point at, hey, like the Warriors just don't have any point guards. Like they've got Steph and Pods and Pat Spencer, and we don't want to see Pat Spencer minutes. So when you're saying that Pod should go to the G League, are you wanting backup point guard minutes to go to Pat Spencer? Because that's what you're basically asking for. I don't think that's what we want. And so I don't think the other thing as well is Pod's last season was at a level that was far beyond like Poole before he went to the G League. And Kuminga just hasn't. When was the last time Kuminga was in the G League? Like he did during his rookie season. Did he even see G League minutes in his second year? Maybe, but I don't think they were overly notable. So I just don't see it happening. Young Wes, I thought JK had one of his better defensive games of the year. Yeah, I'm not even sure it was one of. I think it might have been his best, particularly late on Randall. Like those ISO possessions on Randall, where Not going to lie, I reckon he got cooked the other day. I'm not sure what. And Randall, you got to think, Randall had 14 points and he made back-to-back threes at one point. So he had 6 points in the space of 2 possessions. So he's basically gone the whole game with only 8 points, really, if you take away 2 possessions in a row there. Just having a look at what Randall did the other night. I think he played well, didn't he? He had 16 points. Felt like he played better. He's more efficient, 5'11". I just look at the Randall Kuminga matchup and I think generally in the first half, I was like, I don't really like this. I'm not really sure Kuminga is... Yeah, I'm not sure the trade-off's great. I actually think Randall does a pretty good job on Kuminga defensively, and then maybe Kuminga can get abused a bit, but fair play to him. That second half particularly, he turned that match. He won that matchup easily in the end. He had 20 points, 7 of 16 shooting, not efficient, but far more efficient than Randall going for 14 points on 4 of 14 shooting. So, and then some of the plays late where the Steph Kuminga pick and roll and JK gets a dunk going downhill. Can we see that a bit more often, please? Why does it have to be the last 3 minutes of the game before we see that? I don't know. Can we get some Curry Kuminga pick and roll, even some inverted pick and roll? Get Kuminga as the ball handler, like we saw with that Draymond one at the end, where it's like an inverted pick and roll. And Draymond, instead of handing it off to Steph, just goes by everyone because everyone's expecting him to give the ball up to Steph, and he just goes by everyone for a dunk. Can we see some of that a bit more often, please, rather than just late in games? FTW Clan, I would still trade GP2 for another perimeter defender that can contribute more offensively. I think I agree with you. GSW, any clue on Wiggins' return? Want to see the Warriors in Vegas? Well, he was questionable for this one, so it wasn't as if they just ruled him out like yesterday. He was questionable up until the last couple of hours before the game. So I'm going to assume from that he's not that far away. And then obviously with a bit more to play for, I suppose, on Wednesday, they've got a couple of days off now to prepare for that. I'm confident. Again, I don't know anything, but I'm just confident on the fact there's 2 days rest. He was questionable for this one. The game means a bit more if it's NBA Cup quarterfinal. I'm pretty confident he'll play. FTW Clan specifically being able to space the floor, and says Wiggins said he hopes to play next game. Yeah, I think you in terms of spacing the floor, you're talking about a 2-guard there to kind of, well, we're just talking about another Melton. If we had Melton, that'd just solve everything, but we just don't. GSW Pod's just been shooting bad all season. Yeah, I mean, he goes 2 of 4 in this one. I kind of hope that it just turns around, that there has to be an uptick here at some point where he has a stretch, and we're still waiting for it, but a stretch where he goes 50% on reasonable volume over a 10-game stretch, and all of a sudden he's back above 30% from 3 for the season. I don't know. Gamer FTP, JK locked up Randall and Ant in that 4th. Yeah. Yeah. Gamer FTP says, I wouldn't trade GP2. I would use him in spurts. Yeah, he's certainly, if he's on the team, he's going to play. Because he's generally, when Wiggins is off the floor, you need that perimeter defender. He's obviously important without Melton now. If you still had Melton, then there's no doubt that GP2 would be a trade chip. But now that, I don't know, you got GP2 and you got Loon both on expiring contracts, and it's difficult because they make reasonable money to the point where, okay, you could trade those guys and try and get an upgrade, but they're also important to the team, and they're also important culturally. So it's a tough one. Bree says, good and much needed win. Absolutely. Gamer FTP, without GP2 in the 4th, we lose. And with Pods in the 4th, we lose. Yeah. Definitely a GP2 game, not a Pods game. It's ideally, I think you would have someone else. You wouldn't need either of those guys, where you'd have a guy that provides the 3 and D. I was talking to Josh Cornelison, colleague of mine, the other day, and we're talking about, do the Warriors need a center or do they need another wing? And I was kind of talking about Vucevic, and he was saying, well, I just don't know how much he'd play in the playoffs. I prefer another wing that you could fit into that Melton spot, which I agree with to a degree. Bree says, we need Buddy and Lindy to go on a shooting terror. Yeah, well, Buddy started. The Waters continues he's like Jesus. You throw him out of the rotation and he's going to resuscitate and come back. He's what does he play? He plays 20 minutes. You think this guy's out of the rotation, then he just comes alive and Steve just hands him 20 minutes. And for no real reason, he's not shooting the ball well. So he played 20 minutes the other night and went two of 7. What did he play? I thought I was looking at today's game. I was looking at Fridays. Today, what did he end up playing? Yeah. No, hang on. Let me check this. I think he must have played 15, 20 minutes again. Yep, 22 minutes and 13 seconds. And he scored 0 points. 0 of 5, 0 of 3 from 3. Like, that guy just gets 20 minutes randomly and for no real reason aside from Wiggins is not playing, Moody's not playing, so you kind of just need to fill those minutes with someone, and even if he's not shooting the ball well. Can I give credit to Lindy? So he goes 0 of 5, doesn't score a point. I thought his defense at times, like he forced a turnover on, was it Alexander Walker in the first quarter? He forced another. Like, I thought his defense, that was probably the best defensive performance I've seen from him in a Warrior uniform. So, yes, there was no offense there at all, but I did like he fights. He fights hard on defense. And so a couple of those defensive plays, give him credit for that. Gamer F2P, Wolves was shooting over pods like he doesn't even exist, cost us the lead. Yeah, I get the criticism of pods. I do. And I'm not saying I disagree with it. I'm just saying that he's the backup point guard. He's one of only 2 point guards if you're not going to include Pat Spencer. Like, he's going to play. He's going to play. Now, is he going to play in the clutch? No, like he doesn't play in the final 5 minutes here. And the last few games, he hasn't played in the clutch. And that's probably a good thing. But there's probably going to be other times where he kind of is useful, given he can do so many different things for you at his best. We just haven't seen that enough so far this season. Look, it's hard. I want to try. Like, it's disappointing. The minutes are disappointing from pods. He's not playing well. I do want to cut him some slack, right? Where he's still like his second year. He's 21 years old. Okay. As I said last post-game live, like, I'm more disappointed in TJ. Like, TJD being a DNP, and rightly so. Yes, again, he's only in his second year, but he's also 24 with extensive college experience. That's almost more disappointing to me. I know he's a 57th overall pick, so how much can you be disappointed? But based on last season, I'm almost more disappointed in him than I am pods. So, I don't know. FTW Clan, a stretch big and 3-and-D 2 would solve a lot of issues in this team. Yeah, that's what the Warriors need. They need a stretch big and a 3-and-D. And the TJD DNP probably tells me even more this team needs another center. Like, because if he's just going to be DNPs, then I'm not sure you can go through the whole season with Looney and Draymond. I just don't think you can do that. Those guys got a lot of miles on the legs. Draymond's not a center. You can get away with it, but it's probably unsustainable from more so not from necessarily a like playing basketball like style perspective. Like, you could play Draymond a heap of minutes at center and you're probably going to have a good team, but it's just his body and managing that. I just don't think you can play him at center for a whole lot. So that probably tells me they do need to get another center of some kind. And then, yeah, the 2-guard spot, they need to work out what they're doing there. Now, I think getting a stretch big could help you a little bit in maybe being able to push Wiggins to the 2, Kuminga at the 3. I don't know. Ideally, Moody would be the one. Like, Moody to me is that like 3-and-D guy prototypically, but he just hasn't come along in a way that FTW Clan, we just need pods to be like a TJ McConnell type player. I'm not laughing at your comment. I'm laughing at the fact that we were talking about this guy as like the key piece in the Lowry marketing trade in the offseason. And we're thinking he can be a potential star in this league. And now we're saying, oh, can we just get him to be TJ McConnell? Like, I don't know. Like, that's pretty disappointing. I'm not disagreeing with you. Like, I agree if he could be TJ McConnell, he's a really good backup point guard. Like, that'd be great. But the fact that we're talking and we're comparing him to TJ McConnell when he probably could have been traded for Larry Markin and a genuine all-star who would have fit the Warriors perfectly in the offseason. That's a bit... for what it's worth, I wouldn't trade pods right now because I don't think, like, you could do with getting a backup point guard maybe, but I wouldn't actually trade pods in order to do it, because if you if you put your flag in the ground as the Warriors in the offseason and said, we're not trading this guy for Larry Markkinen or Paul George or whoever, then I wouldn't change that based on the first 23 games this season. Like, I wouldn't change it now. I think you've missed the opportunity, and so you've just got to kind of invest in him now. And so I wouldn't just drastically change unless it was like a legit all-star came on the table, then maybe. But I'd almost continue to have my flag planted in the ground in saying that, okay, we're not going to trade pods unless it's for an uber all-star caliber player who's in his prime. So I don't know. Gamer F2P says, all right, I'll cut him some slack. I'll give him 5 more games. But okay, you give him 5 more games, but then what? Like, again, he's the backup point guard. He's just going to have to play. FTW Clan says Draymond was also in foul trouble trying to play the 5. True, although that 5th one was just dumb. The swipe down on Randall, which you just didn't have to do. And I'm not even sure. Like, I suppose he was going for the steal, but it was just really risky for not much. Like, Randall wasn't even trying to take a shot. He was like turning away from the basket. That was just a dumb foul from Draymond. The Conley foul that was in the 3rd quarter, wasn't it? They gave him his 4th foul where he closes out a little bit too recklessly. So a couple of dumb fouls there from Draymond. I'm not sure that was necessarily him playing center, because you saw over the final 8 minutes. Credit to him, man. Credit when he committed that 5th foul. I was like, okay, what's Steve going to do here? Steve just rode him and trusted him, and for good reason, because the defense that he played in that 4th quarter without fouling was insane, like insanely good. And again, you can get like the Warriors can be a good team with just playing Draymond at center, but again, it's just like unsustainable. And he probably doesn't have the same impact as like a legit anchor of your defense. Like when he's playing the 5, he has to be a genuine rim protector, and he can still do it, but maybe not at the level he once did. Like he's just still super smart, and he'll play angles and stuff like that really well. He probably just doesn't have the athleticism that he once did to be like a really legit shot blocking presence. So we'll wait and see. But yeah, a lot of good to be taken from this game. Like a lot of guys played well. Steph obviously led the way. Buddy, biggest factor in terms of, him returning to form. Kuminga defensively excellent. Best defensive game I think he played for the season. GP2, probably his best performance of the season. Draymond at center, 6 points, 6 rebounds, 7 assists. The defense he played late on 5 fouls was insane. Moody, not like obviously went out injured. Pods, not great, not disastrous, like kind of more of the same. Waters, at least he did some things defensively. I'll give him credit for that. Looney, huge. Looney, God, he goes under the radar. 12 points, 9 rebounds, near double-double in 21 minutes. And we haven't spoken about him. Like, this is the first time 38 minutes in that I'm mentioning him. His bounce-back season has been huge. Now, do I want him starting games? No, not really. Like, I think he's having a nice bounce-back season. I still think the Warriors are limited if he's just all of a sudden starting center again. So that's why I would like an upgrade. But this is the thing. Like, you can go get a Nikola Vucevic. And, okay, it might cost you GP2. It might cost you Melton GP2 in a couple of seconds. And that just gives you something offensively that you don't have. And you know what? If it doesn't work from game to game against specific opponents, you've always got Kevon Looney, good old reliable Kevon Looney, who's playing well, who can come out and play 20 minutes instead. And Vucevic, like, he could have games where he plays only, 12 to 18 minutes for you. Okay? But you know what? He could also have games where he plays 30, 35 minutes and goes for 25 points. And the Warriors just don't have that from the center spot. Could also open up things for Kuminga. So this is the thing. TJD, DNP, Kyle Anderson, 8 minutes. 3 points, 2 rebounds, made a corner 3. You just look at that and think, this guy's got to play more, surely. Has to play more. But then where does that come from? I suppose if the thing is, okay, are you going to take some off Kuminga? Because Anderson's probably looking at Kuminga playing 36 and thinking, surely he can just play 30 and I can get an extra 6 minutes there. But again, where does the upside come from? If the Warriors want to get to a deep point in the playoffs here, I think it's probably a situation where, okay, yeah, you kind of just got to ride Kuminga for 36 minutes in a game like this, and Kyle Anderson plays 8. I don't know. Is Slow-Mo, like, if you're just not going to use him much, I know he's really helpful when he's out there and he's certainly a very good leader and locker room presence. I think Minnesota are probably missing that aspect a fair bit. But does he actually become a trade candidate? Like, if you're talking about veteran guys to move, do you look at a game like this and think, oh, actually, GP2 is more valuable to us than Kyle Anderson? And so would it actually be Kyle Anderson in a trade with Melton for a $20 million player rather than GP2? I don't know. Maybe. FTW Clan says we dominated second chance points. What did that result as? Warriors had 14 offensive rebounds to 7. Again, Loon had 5 offensive boards. That guy, I don't get it. It's absolutely, I continue to be astounded with Loon. He's 6'9". He doesn't really jump off the floor. He doesn't have a jump shot. How are you a productive, good NBA player? Like, you're legit that undersized. You're not athletic. You don't have a jump shot. When you look at Kevon Looney, you think this guy should not be good at the game of basketball or should not be a competent to good NBA player. And yet his rebounding is it just goes to show you, like, again, playing angles and stuff like that on the boards and just knowing where the ball's going and getting yourself in position. Like, it means so much more than like the tangibles of how big is this guy? How quick does he move? That kind of thing. I don't know. It's insane. Warriors won the points off turnover battle. Second chance points you were talking about. They won the points in the paint 48-30. That was notable. Fast break points were 19-9. Points off turnovers were 24-13. So again, Warriors huge in that area. Does it just not have second chance points here? Maybe not. Okay. That's a bit disappointing. But yeah, you're probably right. They smashed on second chance points. I mean, they had 14 offensive rebounds to 7. All right, I'm going to finish it up there. A lot to talk about in that episode. Plenty on Buddy, Kuminga. They're probably the two biggest ones, with Buddy returning to form and Kuminga, probably the best game defensively I've seen from him in quite a while. Warriors have a couple of days off now before facing let me just double check. They don't have a game before then, do they? I think they've got a couple of days off now to prepare themselves for the NBA Cup quarterfinal, their first ever, against the Houston Rockets on Wednesday in Houston. So looking forward to that one. Thank you very much to those of you that tuned in or commented or watching this on replay or via the podcast feed. Much appreciated. Again, FTW Clan says during the game, I know it was like 19-4 in second chance points, but I don't know where it ended. Yeah, I'm not sure. I cannot see it on the box score for some reason on the website. Anyway, I'm going to finish it up there. Thank you once again, guys. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel already, that'd be greatly appreciated. You can follow me, POC252. That's POK252 on X/Twitter. And other than that, for those of you in America, it's still the weekend. Enjoy the remainder of it.